I actually didn't think I would get picked, but I hope
That
for it.
can't really be true. But what you might be saying is, I wasn't worried about it, and I wasn't anxious about it. I was easy about it. The desire was already in place, and since there was no contradictory thought about it, you light it up. In fact, you were the only one in the room.
Thank you. I guess my question is, I grew up as a Zoroastrian, so there was always a concept of good and bad, light and dark. But as I listen to your tapes and I listen to your words, I'm beginning to understand that it's either there's light or there's no light. There's love and there's no love.
Wanted or absence of it.
Correct. But I was raised to understand that no matter what you do, there's always evil around that tries to tempt you. So always be careful, always watch out for evil. Hear no evil, say no evil, do no evil.
That misunderstanding comes from not understanding that this is a universe based on attraction. That's a universe based on assertion. So there's someone maybe good and maybe bad that's wanting to assert into your experience. But did you notice that we're putting all the emphasis on the receiving mode? You getting into the receiving mode, because you can receive from those who mean you harm, or you can receive from those who mean you good, but you are the receiver, so you hold the control. There's no assertion.
I mean, just like everybody else, I deal with the daily conflicts and battles of interaction with people. Someone cuts you off in front of the road, what have you.
Listen to your words just a little bit. We're just going to offer this to you softly. I deal with is sort of a confrontational term. And those who cut you off, there is a sort of belief within you that they are out to get you. And it sort of stems from what you were saying earlier. But it doesn't matter how you got to that place. That does not serve you very well, does it?
No.
Yeah.
So going back to, let's say, things in your childhood, for example, I went through a revolution at a very early stage in my life.
Impressionable, isn't it?
Very.
Yeah.
And no matter what kind of work I do, no matter, even went back as far as constellation and go back generations, it doesn't seem I can shake it off.
See, those are strong words. No matter how hard I try, I can't do it. We get why you would feel that way. And you're certainly not wrong to feel that way. But it is a softening of that which is necessary. It's sort of like the well-being is raining down around you, and you've got an umbrella up there shielding yourself from the well-being. And you say to us, but this umbrella is important because life was hard. And we say, we know, we get why it feels that way. We know that you understand this conceptually, and that what you're asking about is, how does someone not remember what they lived or not notice what's happening? How does someone not respond to life? How does someone not respond to hard life? How does someone not be hardened by life? How does someone not want to punch back when they're punched? We understand that. And we're not saying in any way that it's wrong to have that knee-jerk reaction. Everyone does, or nearly so. But once you have experienced a soft, gentle thought about something that you hold no resistance, and you're able to witness how cooperative the universe is in yielding to you this subject to which you have no resistance, then you can begin to believe that softening of resistance about things will open doors to you that have not been open.
So let's say as a child you were bit by a dog.
Yeah.
Now every time you see a dog,
you're going to have a different relationship with a dog, unless since your childhood you met some nice dogs. We would go along with you if every dog you ever saw bit you. We would go along with you if every dog bit every child. Esther was going through the airport in San Diego yesterday, and the drug sniffing dogs were in the TSA area, and there were several of them. And a mother is going through with her little girl, and her little girl just came to a screeching halt. And the mother said to the agent, she is afraid of the dog. And he said, essentially, too bad. He had no compassion for her fear. And the little girl was crying. She was clinging to her mother. She was not about to move forward. And there was the dog looking right at her. And the bigger fuss the little girl made, the more interest the dogs had in her. And as Esther walked along, she is singing in her mind, nicest doggy I've ever seen. That's the 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 nicest. And all three dogs looked at Esther. Because they'll go wherever you are. And the little girl squeaked through, and the mother kept complaining all the way through. Esther could hear her. The mother was saying, she's just a little girl. And Esther did not speak to either of them. Esther was not wanting to put any more of a spotlight on anything. But of course, if you are afraid of a dog, you are afraid of a dog until you've had the opportunity to be around dogs that you don't need to be afraid of.
So the concept of you can't get rid of these darknesses or challenges, but you can raise above them is completely true.
Here's a way we would say it. Whenever you think about something that has caused you discomfort, that discomfort is going to return, but you can think about other things. A belief is only a thought you continue to think. If you will put law of attraction into the equation of beliefs and reality, and if you will just consider that you get what you think about. Now that doesn't feel accurate to you because it didn't feel to you that you were thinking about revolution, and yet it came to you, and then you observed it, and then you responded to it. But what we want you to know is that if you hear us and you take us very literally and you say, Abraham says I should not think about these things that bother me. So you say, so I'm not going to think about that anymore. I'm not going to think about that dog. I'm not going to think about that. But you're thinking about that. You're thinking about that thing that you're not going to think about. And then you say, but Abraham said not to think about it. I'm not going to think about that. 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 I'm not going to think about it. And after a while, you're not thinking about anything else. But you can think about something else. But you cannot take a train that's going 80 miles an hour that way and suddenly make it go 80 miles an hour that way. The speed of the train is all about momentum, and law of attraction is all about momentum. And so what you do is you just let that train keep going while you think other thoughts about other things. And eventually you'll find that the momentum of your thought has changed.
One last question. Abraham, what do you see?
We know you hear this conceptually, and we think you're very kind and considerate to pretend like you are getting it, even as we are speaking it here. No, because no one should be expected to have the bigness of life that you've lived be turned around with a few statements like this. These statements are not going to turn it around for you, even though this is wisdom of universal laws and forces. We can't just say it to you and you say, okay. It's more like, all right, I can see I'm not going to get anywhere with you, Abraham. So often as we are visiting with our friends, we've been doing this for quite a while, and we've written a lot of books and a lot of processes to help people softly think a little differently than they have, so that their thoughts are more productive and more satisfying to them. That's the whole point of our interacting. And most of those processes are not effective for most of the people because their vibration is so entrenched because of the life that they've lived. It's sort of like putting a happy face sticker on the empty gas gauge. As long as I don't know there's no fuel, I'll be all right. So what we're looking for these days is a way to really help you affect your vibration. And there are two things that we want you to know. One is when you sleep, momentum subsides. So your best shot at getting momentum going in a different direction is first thing in the morning, before you've remembered all of these things that we've talked about just now. Because right now, as much as we know how it can be better, if you don't know it, it can't be better. So first thing in the morning is the easiest time of day to find a new thought. And the other thing is, if you can find 15 or 20 minutes every day to quiet your mind, which is what meditation is, then in that quieted mind, you'll stop all thought. And when you stop all thought, you've stopped resistant thought. And when the resistant thought that is natural and that nobody's arguing with you about why you've got it, when that has rested just a little bit, your vibrational frequency will rise, and you have an opportunity to then receive an impulse or an idea, a thought from your inner being. And we know you've done that. But what keeps you from realizing, from recognizing, for knowing personally that you just got a message from source, or that you just got a message from your inner being, is that you've got some big question and you want some big answer, but you're not vibrationally ready for the big answer. So you get the beginning of the big answer and it doesn't feel big enough, so you don't believe that's where it's coming from. We want you to realize that you got to be ready 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 to be ready. Esther can sit from meditation, and almost as soon as she quiets her mind, we begin flowing consciousness to her and through her. Things like this. Every day she could write another book if she was willing to write it down, because every day there's another stream of consciousness that will come that is answering not only her questions and Jerry's questions, but the questions that the world is asking these days. Billions of people asking, and a few conduits open. And so when Esther gets into that receiving mode, she can receive profound things. We really want you to hear this. The other day she meditated. She knew she'd quieted her mind because she felt detached, couldn't really feel her nose from her toe. She likes that feeling of sort of suspended. She knew that she was sitting on a chair, but she couldn't really feel the chair beneath her. It was sort of like unimportant. It was like she was consciousness, not a physical body. You got there every now and again? Feels good, doesn't it? Don't always get there, but when you do, it's a really good thing. It means you have quieted your mind, and your mind is not interfering with your flow of thought. And then she received a thought. And the thought was not about world peace. It was not about anything profound or important or spiritual. She just had this thought that she'd like to move some furniture around. And that sounds ridiculous, except that it led to the calling of some people and some conversations and some profound things that were very meaningful to both Esther and the person who came to move the furniture. In other words, it was getting ready to be ready to be ready to be ready to be ready. And because your inner being knows what your path of least resistance is, your inner being will give you the thought. So all that we're asking of you is that you put yourself in a position where you might receive that thought, and that you don't judge the thought that comes. And you know how you know whether it's a thought from source? It's a really good feeling thought. Esther could not wait to get into motion about moving some furniture around. And really, if she'd stopped to think about it, she'd have thought, the furniture in this room is exactly perfect as it is. We've measured it all. We've tried it every which way. This is perfect. None of that's going through her mind. Just the idea of moving furniture around was just the most blissful thought that she could ever even think of. It was irrationally blissful. And then as those thoughts began turning to things, about halfway through it, she started to realize what had been going on. And she started to recognize that she had received one of the most profound and direct and important messages from source that she'd ever received. Move some furniture. And then do whatever it takes to do that. In other words, follow the impulses along that way. So she got on the computer to decide who was going to help her move it, because she couldn't move it by herself. And knew what of all those, she was 3 pages in before she felt that's them, the impulse. She's just sort of looking, boom, there it is. Same happy feeling, moving furniture. Do you trust yourself to know what feels happy to you? Most people don't, because you've been listening to others who have said there's good and evil and there's right and wrong. Not there's good feelings and there's bad feelings. Most of you have been guided away from your own guidance system, so that then you must listen to what others say. And what do they know? They don't know. They haven't walked with you. They haven't lived all the lives that you've lived. They don't know what's in your vortex, and they don't know where you stand. No one else can be your guidance, and almost everybody else wants to be. Almost everybody wants to guide you. And if your parents, you know it, you do that with your children. And if your parents, you know it, your children do it with you. Everybody's kind of bossing everybody around, because almost everybody is living a very conditional life. I would feel a lot better if you would smile more as you visit with us here. Almost everybody is living a conditional life experience. This is what we mean to say to you with all that we just said to you.